Hello and welcome to this demonstration for ArtCAM Express 2015 R2. In this demonstration I'm going to show you how you can import a 3D file into ArtCAM Express and how you can modify that and actually use that in your design. And I'm also going to show you various carving techniques that we can use to actually create a pattern on this example, which is this phone case. Okay, so if I go to File and I'm just going to close the model, and if you take a look on the far right hand side, you can see that I actually have an installed module, and that is the Fluting module. Okay, now I'll explain to you what that does and how you can use that to affect your carvings when I get to it. So everything that you see up until that point will be just the basic version of ArtCAM Express. Okay, so to import a 3D file, I have the back of a phone and I'm going to turn that into a more decorative sort of piece. The first thing that you need to do is to create a new model. So if we go to New Model, and then it asks you to set up the size for the new model. So let's do this, let's say 150mm square. Let's leave the origin point in the middle. If you want to change that, you just select any of the corners or the center there. And then I'm going to select OK. And this will open up a new model for me. Now, if you were to import a 3D object whilst still in the 2D view, you wouldn't actually see anything, and it wouldn't, as far as you're concerned, it wouldn't actually do anything because you couldn't see it, because you need to be in the 3D view to do this. Okay, otherwise you just won't see it. So if I go to the 3D view, and you can see we've got this yellow flat plane here. What we need to do is go up to Reliefs and then come down to the drop down of Import 3D Model. And if I select that, you can see that it's defaulted into my phone case folder, and in there I have an STL file which is called phone cover. Now if I open that, it's basically just giving me a message that it's not sure what type of STL file this is. I'm just going to take a guess and say that it is a binary STL. So if I just select yes, and then what will happen is that it will show you this Pace 3D model. Now at the moment I still can't see the phone case. Now that's because the origin may have been set really far away, so it's actually off the screen somewhere, or it might be underneath this 0 plane and I just can't see it. So the quickest way to actually see it is to select center, and that will center the 3D model that you've just imported into the screen or into the center of that model. So if I select that, you can see that it's brought it into the center there. Now if I just rotate this around, you can see it's obviously in the wrong orientation. So what I need to do is flip this around, and I need to do this in the X axis. So let's type in there, and I'm going to do this -90, so then it flips it down straight. So if I type in there -90 and then select apply, you can see that that flips that around. Okay, now you can see that it's still above the 0 plane. All that I need to do is select center, and that will bring that back down. Okay, so it's brought it back down to the center of the 0 plane. Now I can see at the bottom that I've got the sizes for this piece. Now let's say for instance that I wanted this to be 110 exactly in Y, but let's say that I wanted to keep the Z size set at 10. What I need to do is just turn off link Z, because at the moment this will do it, basically scale it up uniformly. So now it's only going to scale up the Y and the X uniformly. So if I enter there 110, you can see that it's also changed the X. Now this won't update until I press apply. So if I press apply, you can see that it's got a little bit bigger. It's kept the Z size at 10. So if I now paste that down, if I select close, this will just lose the model, okay, and I would have to start again. So what I need to do is select paste, and then I can select close, and you'll see that I've got my phone case, okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is create some vectors for the actual patterns that I'm creating. Now, I'm going to create some fireworks on the top of this phone case. So what I'm going to do is take a view from the top, and let's create a straight line. And you can see here that when I hover the cursor somewhere near the center, I get this round circle. Now this is what we call snap hints, and this is a new feature within ArtCAM 2015 R2. It basically gives you a hint of where the nearest snap point is. It's quite useful for finding the center of things, because you would have to hover the mouse somewhere near the center and you wouldn't really know where the center of that actually was. So now it just gives you this little hint, so you know where the center is and you can just select there. Okay, so I can just select there, I know that that's the center. I'm going to turn off draw smooth polylines, and rather than me just creating a line up here, I want this to be a specific size. So I want this to be 25 millimeters, and I can do that by just typing in on Y 25 and then just select add point, and it will basically create a line 25 millimeters. Now I don't want to carry this line on. What I want to do is create a new line. But a little tip, if I want the polyline tool to stay open, if I just press space on the keyboard, it will allow me to create a new line. I'm going to snap again from the center there. Let's do it, let's say about there. Press space again. Let's do that around about there. Now you can see it's giving me all these snap hints, basically telling me where the end points and the midpoints are. Now you can see here it's getting a little bit noisy, so if you want to turn those off, all that you need to do is go down to view, snapping, and just turn off snap hints, okay, and then you won't see them again. So let's create another one, let's say about there. Okay, so I've got my 4 lines that I have here. Now importantly, I've done those from the center outwards. So here you can see green is the start point, the red is the end point. So all of those are like so. Now this is quite useful for the fluting, because I want them to all go in the same direction. You'll understand why when I actually get to the fluting. Okay, so let's create a copy of all of these, and I'm going to do that by using the rotate copy. So if I select here to rotate copy, and make sure that I select rotate copy, the rotation center is 0, 0. If I didn't draw this in the center, I could just select the option here to select where I want to basically have the rotation center, and then just snap to the center there. So I'm going to do this a total of 360 degrees, and let's try 6 objects to copy. Select apply, and you can see that it's created this sort of firework effect. Okay, so with all of these vectors selected, I'm going to group them together. You can see that they turned purple, so now I can just select one of those vectors and it selects all of them. I'm going to transform this, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, like so. Let's bring it down to about there, and I'm also going to select it and I'm just going to move that up to the top right here. Okay, I'm going to create a few more copies of this now. So let's just select that, and I'm going to press Control on the keyboard and it will create a copy. Let's transform this. Let's make it a little bit larger. Let's say like so, maybe rotate that around. So we've got some sort of variation. Let's put that there. And then maybe create another copy of the original. Just do that down here like so. If I wanted to, I could rotate that one around. Maybe there. Like so. So I've got 3 different variations of these fireworks. Okay, so the next thing to do is to create a boundary around the actual phone. Now, if I was using ArtCAM Insignia, this would be really easy. We have a tool that would just basically is just a one-click tool, which will just create a boundary around this relief. Now, because we're using ArtCAM Express, we haven't got that luxury. So I'll show you how you can do this manually. So a good thing to do is switch to the 2D view and select here to toggle the relief preview. And you can turn on the relief. It basically gives you a shaded image of the relief, and what you can do with this is adjust the transparency of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create, let's just zoom in here, let's create a line. Now I want these to be smooth polylines. Now a little tip, if you want to create a straight line and then go into curves, if you just create, let's say, a really short line here, so it basically creates 2 nodes, and these nodes will basically lock. And if I come down here, you can see that I can create this straight line, and then create a short line again. And then what this will allow me to do is create a curve around here. If I didn't do that, this line here would be coming right the way out because it would be trying to blend into each other. So what I can do now is create a curve there, create one there, let's create one here, and then make sure that I do a small one here. If I didn't do a small one, you could see what it would actually look like. If I went to go up here, you can see that I've got this part coming out on the right hand side, and I don't really want that. I'm going to have to node edit this anyway, but might as well get it somewhere near to begin with. So let's go up to there. And you can see if I were to create that now, you can see how far it comes out. Okay, so let's just create a small node here and then follow that around. Obviously I'm doing this really quickly, and then just drawing that up there like so. Now you can see that it's not perfect. You can see that it's not basically touching here, but you can do this really easy by node editing. So if I go into node editing, make sure that I've got the Bezier handles on, and then what I can do is just change these handles and just move the nodes just so it actually looks like the boundary of the phone case. So just bring that out there, maybe bring that to there, bring that down. Oops. Okay, let's just do the bottom here. So let's bring that handle out there, like so. Okay, so that looks okay. So when I'm happy with that, I can close node editing, and you can see that I've got this boundary. Now I also want to create a circle for the hole. Now I can do that really easy to find what diameter this is by creating a rectangle. Make sure that it's larger on the one end, and then make sure that these two sides actually just touch the circle edges, okay, like so. And then what I can do is transform this, and I can bring that side in so it just touches, and then I can bring that side down until it just touches also. So there you can see I've got this rectangle, or this square, that basically touches the extremities of this circle. Now what I can do is create a new circle, and what this will allow me to do is create one in the center, because it will go to the center of the rectangle. Now you can see here that it's quite hard to actually find the center. I don't know where that actually is, so this is where the snap hints come in handy. So if I turn those on, you can see that it's just giving me this hint there, and I know where the center is. And I'm just going to bring that out to the midpoint here. Okay, so there you can see I've created my circle, and that's the same size as the circle on the relief. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just create a few offsets for this. Now let's just take a look on the 3D view to do this. So let's select to offset vectors, and I'm just going to offset the outside boundary. I'm just basically going to offset this as far as I want outside, because basically if I were to use this vector as the machining boundary, it would leave a little cusp on the edge for whatever ball nose tool that I was using. So I need the ball nose to come over the edge. Okay, so if I select that, let's just bring that out, let's say about there, and then what I'm going to do is select to create radius corners, and I'm going to bring this in, let's say to about, there. I'm also going to bring this circle out, and let's bring that to about there, and then I can close that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is basically trim off this area here. Now normally you would see me using the wild vectors tool. That's not going to really work very well for this piece, because it wouldn't know what piece to keep. So what I'm going to do is to trim vectors, make sure that I've got auto join on, because I don't want to join these up afterwards, and I'm going to trim that off, and I'm going to trim that off. So if I close that now, select it, you can see that it's all one piece. And there you can see the design almost finished. There's a couple of things that I need to do, which is just to break up this border that I have here, or this edge. And what I'm going to do is just go into node editing to do this, and I'm just going to, if you right click, you can see we have cut vector. The shortcut for that is C. So if I select that there and press C there, let's do the same up here somewhere, let's say there, and then let's do the same for the bottom here. Let's do that around about there, like so. And what I'm going to do is delete that piece, and I'm going to delete that piece. So I've just got these two pieces here. Now that looks probably a little bit too long, so let's just cut that vector, let's say about there, and just delete that piece. Okay, so that looks okay. That's basically my design. So moving on now to creating the toolpaths for this. The first thing that I'm going to do is basically machine all of the 3D piece, and I'm going to do this by using a machine relief toolpath. So if I select toolpaths and then create machine relief, And I'm going to not do this over the whole relief, that would be a complete waste of time. I'm going to use selected vectors rather than select this vector because it would leave a little cusp on the edge. I'm going to use this vector here, and the finishing options, I'm going to choose quite a small tool for this, let's say a 1.5mm ball nose. The roughing, let's use, let's say a 6mm end mill. And just going to use the default values for this. Let's define the material. Let's make sure the Z0 is at the top there. Select OK, and then I'm going to calculate now. So there you can see the roughing and the finishing. Now, if I open this up and then turn off the light bulb here, you can see this is basically the roughing toolpath, which is the 6mm, and then I can turn that off like so, and then that will just show the finishing toolpath. Okay, so let's just turn those off for a moment. So what I'm going to do now is start machining these fireworks in the centre, these patterns that I have. Now I'm going to do the first firework, which is here. I'm going to basically machine that using a V-bit. So I'm just going to do some basic V-bit carving, but I'm not going to use the V-bit carving tool because that requires a closed vector, and I have a group of open vectors. So the way that you can do this is by actually using the create profile toolpath, and then just make sure that you have the profile set to along, so it follows the vectors. Okay, now the finish depth, obviously it's not going to go 10mm. Let's try 0.25mm. Profiling tool, let's select a V-bit. Let's choose this small V-bit that I have here. Okay, and then let's calculate now. So what I can do now is simulate these. So let's simulate the first machine relief. So this is basically just roughing and then finishing the part. And then the profile, let me just rename that. Just so I know what that actually is. And then let's simulate that. And you can see that it's basically created quite a straightforward pattern. It's just followed the vectors at a depth, and then the form that it's created is just created by the actual form on the tool. Okay, so we can do that again if we want to on this center one. Let's do exactly the same process but use a different tool so we get a different form on the actual piece. So let's do that. 0.25 profiling tool. Let's use 1.5mm ball nose again. So let's select calculate now. Here you can see that it's giving me an error message. Now it's saying that one or more of the selected vectors overlap each other. Now what I forgot to do is to actually change where I want to basically machine this. So at the moment it's profiling on the outside. So it's giving an error message because they're basically going to all intersect. So I need to change it to along and then select calculate now. So let's rename that. Let's call that 1.5mm ball nose and then simulate that, and you can see that this gives a different type of carving. You can see that this one's quite nice. I quite like that one. I like how it comes to nothing in the centre. Okay, so another way that you can do this is to actually use the fluting module, and this will give you really nice results because what you can do with this is actually control the ramping, or the way that the tool goes into the material. So you can control the distance that it actually feeds into the material or plunges into the material. I'll show you how it works. So let's turn on the vectors and let's just ungroup these vectors. Okay, and I'm just going to use just this one vector here, just to show you how this actually works. So if I go to toolpaths, everything that you've seen previously to this is just the basic version of ArtCAM Express. This is using the fluting module. So if I go to fluting, which is here, this opens up a new toolpath, the fluting toolpath. It's pretty much the same as what you've just seen, except you can control certain aspects of it. So if I just zoom in here, just so you can see this, and you can see that I've got this line, and it's basically showing me which way this is going. So it's going from the start point here to the end point, and it's got this arrow just showing me which way, which direction it's going. So let's do this the same, 0.25mm finish depth. Fluting tool, let's try the same ball nose that I just used so we can compare the two right next to each other. And then select. Okay, so if I come down, you can see that I've got start flute and end flute. What I'm going to do is turn these off just for the time being. And then I'm going to select calculate. You can see that it's created this straight line. Now you can see that this is not close to this line. That's because the vectors are being drawn on the base plane. And I don't really want them to be on the base plane. I want them to be on the top of the actual phone. So what I can do to make that happen, make the vectors go onto the top of the phone, is if I go to edit and then go to 3D graphics options, and then where it says vectors, I have draw plane, and at the moment it's set to relief base plane. If I change that and change it to top of material and apply, you can see that the vectors move up to the top. Okay, so now I can zoom out and I can see exactly what this toolpath is doing. Okay, so at the moment it's not actually fluting, it's just basically the same as the previous profile that I'd done. So it's just plunging in, going across, and then retracting out. So that's not really what I want. So what I want to do is let's change, let's say the end flute, and I'm going to do this as a linear, so it's just going to go straight out. Okay, and let's change it, I don't know, let's say 10%. Okay, so what will happen, it will plunge in, come right the way across until it gets to 90%, so there's 10% remaining, and then the tool will just come out at an angle until it hits the top of here. Okay, so if I select calculate, let's just zoom in so you can see this. So here you can see there's 10% remaining and the tool's just coming out at a straight angle until it gets to the 0. I can change that, let's say 20%. You can see that that's changed to 20%. You can also change it to a curve if you want to. So this curves out. It's quite good when you have short length flutes. So you can see I get this nice curve here as it comes out. Let's change this, let's say, I don't know, let's try 25, like so, on a curve. And let's also add a start flute. Let's do this linear. And let's try, let's leave this as 50%. Let's see what it looks like and calculate. So you can see that that's just coming down really, really slowly until it gets to 50%. And then that's at the full depth. And then it machines across until there's 25% left. And then it starts retracting at a curve. Okay, and then comes out. Now you can see that I've only done this for the one line. So what I need to do is select all of those lines and calculate now. So if I simulate this, let's close that, simulate this one toolpath, you can see that I get this sort of effect, and it's quite nice. What's happening is that it's slowly coming down to the depth, and then because it's gradually coming out, I get this sort of edge, this nice edge, rather than just this round edge here. Okay, so that's how you use the fluting toolpath, and you can see that that's a really, really nice carving compared to the other two carvings, which are okay. It's just that they're really basic. This one, you can do some really nice effects. Okay, so finally what I'm going to do is to cut the part out. I'm also going to take a look at this. You can see here that I've got this radius in the corner of this circle here. I don't really want that. Let's take that out. So let's turn on the vectors. Let's select that vector there. Now if you take a look, the bottom right hand corner, you can see that I have a Z minus value. You can see that it's set to -2, so that's the depth of this. So let's create just a profile. I don't need to do an area clearance for this because all of it's already machined out the way. So let's create a profile. Going to do that along the inside. Finish depth, definitely not 10mm, it's 2mm. Let's select a profiling tool. Now I'm not too sure how big this hole actually is. So what I'm going to do is just cancel that a second. Let's just zoom in. I'm just going to measure this quickly. So it's 8.76, so I'll be able to get in there with quite a large tool. So let's close the measure tool. Select profiling tool. Let's use a 6mm end mill and then calculate now. Okay, so that's just basically gone around at the depth. So if I simulate that, you can see that it's just took that radius out of there, which is something that I didn't really want. So let's select the original boundary for this and let's create a new profile. The finished depth is 10mm, so it's going to cut the part out. Profiling tool, let's use the 6mm. Select create, and then I can simulate that and it's cut the part out. What I need to do is just delete the waste material. So what I'm going to do with this is keep picked material, and I'm going to pick that material. And there you can see my phone case that I've imported in, and I've created all of this carving on there. Right, so let's just change the names of these. Just so I know what's what when I create the G code for this. Okay, so when I want to save this to send to my CNC machine, if I select toolpaths, and then I can select to save toolpaths, and you can see here all of my toolpaths. Okay, so let's save the toolpaths to separate files. So if you've got a single headed machine, this would be what you would do. You would save them all to separate files and then send them to your machine separately. You can also append the toolpath details to the file names, so it basically adds all of this information into the file name so I can see what it is. Let's click to browse, and I'm going to go onto my desktop. Let's find my folder. Let's call this, let's say, carving fireworks. Click open, and the machine file format, this is probably the most important part of this dialog box. If I select that, you can see that we have all of these different machines. Now these are what we call post processors, and they're basically a converter that converts all of the information, the toolpath information from ArtCAM into a code that your CNC will understand, and it will basically make your machine move and cut this part. Okay, so we have well over 200 post processors available within all of the versions of ArtCAM. Now, if you're not sure whether your machine is listed on here, I strongly recommend that you download the demo or the trial version, go through the tutorials, and then at the end of that you'll see whether your machine is on there, and you can try different post processors, see if they work on your machine. Just make sure that it's working okay before you actually purchase ArtCAM. So I'm just going to use a generic G-code post here. Click save. Let's open up my folder, and you can see that I've got all of these files here. Now these are just basically text. So if I were to select, let's say, the profile for the whole, open that up, you can see that it's just a basic text document, and it's just showing, it's just basically telling the CNC what to actually do, how to machine it. Okay, so I hope that you found this demonstration useful, and thank you for watching. Take care. Goodbye.